What's up YouTube? In this video, I will show you how I built this cheap DIY 90 degrees die grinder tool that I will be using for porting my Yamaha DP 175 cylinder. These are the parts that I bought online, which I think are parts for a 3D printer. This is some kind of a bracket for outdoor lighting that I will use for the main body of my die grinder tool. It is made of aluminum and I used a hacksaw to cut out the parts that I will use. This angled piece is the part that I will use for the main body of my die grinder tool. Then I drilled a total of 6 holes on the long side of the main piece. There is another aluminum plate that I clamped to the main piece while drilling so that the holes perfectly aligned on the two pieces. I use a step drill to enlarge the two holes on the ends that will house the bearings. The diameter of the hole is the same as the bearing outside diameter. The step ensures that the bearing will not be pushed out of the hole. I cut some pieces from a stainless steel tubing. I will later use these pieces as spacers and the ends should be squared. To square the ends of the cut, I turn the piece of tubing on a drill while grinding the edges. This is the 5mm linear shaft that I bought online, and one end needs to be turned down to 3mm. I do that by grinding the end while it spins on a hand drill. This gives me a concentric diameter. The grinding wheel was used to reduce the diameter to rough dimensions, then followed by a flapper wheel to smoothen and bring it down to the final diameter of 3mm. One end of the shaft needs to have a diameter of 3mm so that it can be inserted to the flexible shaft die grinder. This small tube is from a toy helicopter shaft. It has an outside diameter of 4mm and the 3mm shaft of my die grinder bits fits almost perfectly inside the tube. I am drilling 2 holes at the end of this tube. The holes are for the screws that will hold the grinder bits later. After preparing all the different parts, we can now do the assembly. This strip of aluminum is slightly bent. It is where the flexible shaft die grinder attaches to. You will see later. The pulley and bearings attaches to the linear shaft that we turned down the ends earlier. The bearing fits the 10 mm hole with a step in it. The other bearing came from a toy helicopter and fits this 8 mm hole, which also have a step inside, just like the other one. This smaller bearing is for the tube that will hold the die grinder bits. This collar with 2 set screws also came from the toy helicopter. The 2 screws will lock the die grinder bits, and that is why I drilled 2 holes in the end of this tube. This small washer also came from the toy helicopter. The tube diameter is 4 mm. However, the bore on the pulley is 5 mm. I made a collar out of aluminum can to fill the gap so the pulley fits snug with the tube. I then inserted another small washer and another bearing to the tube. Then the 2 pulleys are joined together by the timing belt. The spacers are attached by bolts and nuts. I also have these aluminum cable crimps. Works well as a spacer. This aluminum plate has matching holes for the bearings and the bolts. The holes line up perfectly because I drilled the holes with the pieces clamped together. The aluminum plate I have is not thick enough to drill a step hole. So I made these small bearing retainer plates to keep the bearings in place. Then I tighten all the bolts and nuts and also the pulley set screws. Lastly, I attached the flexible shaft die grinder and fixed it in place with cable ties. The handle of the flexible shaft had flat spots. That is where it lands perfectly on the strip of aluminum. The tube with the two set screws function as a tool holder, makes it convenient changing the grinder bits. This DIY 90 degrees die grinder tool works very well. I'm very pleased with the results. I still have to make some kind of cover for this side so that I don't touch the moving belt. You will see more of this tool in action on my next videos porting the cylinder of the Yamaha DT175. Thank you for watching and see you next time.